Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We are earlier today because it's a special day. I have Steven here with me. Are you guys ready? Hello to, we've got Annie's here, Sandy's here, Rosie. Hello. I don't think I said hello to you earlier. Victoria, Lorna. Glad you guys are all here. Hi, Susan. Okay, are you guys ready? I can't wait. I can't wait. So I have Steven. He's the author of the book we've been reading on the book club, Murder Investigation Team. And he agreed to come on and visit with us. And I'm got to turn my fan on here. I get all excited. Okay, here we go. You guys ready?
Hello.
Yay.
Hi, Jill. You're right.
Okay, I gotta make sure. Oh, I am on. Okay, good.
Can you hear
Sometimes I
me?
forget to turn my microphone on. And then
I've got my own YouTube channel now, haven't I? Mine never starts smoothly. I always spend about the first couple of minutes looking like a right buffoon. So you do much better than me.
well, it's so good to have you here again. I'm so tickled that you're here. This is just so fun.
No, it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure. I mean, you enjoyed my book, so I
I
owe
know.
you.
Oh my gosh. This book is really good, though. It really is
Oh,
good.
thank
This
you.
is not, I know it's an informational book, but it was fun at the same time. And maybe I'm just because I'm that true crime fan that I think, it's fun. But I really did think it was fun to read because it gave us a really great insight into the other side. All of
Yeah.
us think we know what y'all are doing.
Yeah.
So
It was a difficult book to write. I won't lie, because there's a balance between giving information and making it entertaining in a way. I'm not trying to make it an entertaining book, but somebody can't just if it was a manual, people would nod off, wouldn't they? So it was a hard balance. And look, some people think maybe it's too much information. They'd rather have more of the stories about my career. But it was a balance, and that was where I landed. So I'm pleased you enjoyed it.
I know that you put a lot more of that. It felt like you put more of that towards the end of the book. Like you gave us little snippets in the beginning, and then there were some deeper stories, I felt like,
Yeah.
towards the end of the book,
Yeah. Which is a gamble because people might not get to the end. So
I think it was it was
yeah.
a good mix. I really think it was. Everybody's saying hello.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so Yarn Bath. Oh, a great name. Hi,
It
hi,
is.
Mary. How are you?
Yes. Oh, she
Crafty
just
Yang.
ordered the book. Susan did.
Oh,
Cool.
perfect, Susan. Thank you. My
Oh,
publishers will be happy. I might see like 2 pence of it, but
well,
my publishers will be happy.
you see which one I got.
You got the one. Yeah, that's the one I did.
Yes. So
That's
this
the
is the one
original.
you did. And then
Yeah,
I saw you and you were doing where was it you sat and you were signing the books?
CrimeCon.
And I'm like, man, I wish I were in line. I wish I were in line. Would have been so fun.
Well, I'm here this year. If you can get over to London as well.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. I would. I would. If I could, I would. But, there's all these regulations. I don't like to play nice with the regulations, and that's my problem. But anyway, okay, I do have questions for you.
Cool.
But I wanted to start with, I know this is a big question. This is my main question for you. So we can start with that. But what was the main reason that made you write this book? What was it that you thought the world needed, why they needed this information?
So I didn't start off to write this book. I set off to write a completely different book. And the idea being, when I left the police, my overriding goal was I didn't want to work for anybody again. I've had 30 years of being told what to do and where to be, and I was just in the end, I was like, I just want to be my own boss for a little while. So I set up a company. The idea was to go into other companies and impart some of the skills you get from murder investigation is to business.
Mhm.
Everything I read said if you want to position yourself as an expert, then write a book. So I started to write a book about these are the skills we have in business, and in the police, and this is how it can help your business. But it wasn't. Yeah, it just wasn't. It wasn't right. It wasn't. It was just felt like it was trying to be something it
Oh,
wasn't. So in the end, I just thought, well, if I'm writing a book, what can I write a book about? I was like, well, if it's about murder, who's going to want to know about murder? And it's sort of, well, true crime fans. So in the end, I thought, okay, I'll write a book about it. And I did a bit of research, and it doesn't exist. And I thought, well, surely someone must have written about how we investigate murders, but not. They hadn't. Lots of people have written books about specific cases, and this is how we solved it. But there
right.
then there were no. This is the overall. Certainly in the UK, whether there's anywhere else, but in the UK, there's no overall. This is how it's done. So I went to a couple of true crime Facebook groups, one in the States and one in the UK. Just introduced myself and said, "This is who I am. I'm writing this book. What would you like to know about murder investigation?" And
Oh,
I use, Survey Monkey. So I used a Survey Monkey, and I got 600 responses, and it was just like, wow. So, and the best question I put in was just an open question: "What do you want to know?" And I kind of wrote the book to the people, not all of it, but I went through all the questions and make sure I was answering them. So if someone wants to know about it, I'd write about it. And the number one question was, why do people kill? So I addressed that in there and stuff. But yeah, so I never intended to write this book. It just kind of it morphed into it.
I feel like when it comes to true crime, especially, that is probably, and people in the chat, you guys can put it in there, please. Everybody's like, because the chat's like not moving. But I know that they're enthralled. But I think that it has a lot to do with the fact that we all want to know why.
Why?
When it comes to true crime, why do people do it? Why did they
Yeah,
do that? What
yeah,
makes people do that stuff? You know, I really do think that has something to do with it. Um,
yeah. And you've read the book. So what I came up with was I don't think anybody's ever addressed it in the way that I have. And when I put my mind to it, it just became a bit. I look at things quite logically, and when I
mhm,
boiled it down, and to me, it's semantics. What you're using, not quite often. It's for instance, revenge, anger. They're just words that describe emotion. So what you're basically talking about is something's happened that's triggered an emotion. Well, that
right,
covers like a lot of them. And then and it just in the end, it just boiled down to me to three reasons people kill, because of how you've made me feel, because of how I want to feel, and the benefit I'm going to get from it. And it to me, it kind of all works. And I've not been challenged on it yet, and I've spoken to some quite intelligent people who've gone, oh, actually, yeah, you
I
might be
like
onto
that
something.
though. I do
Yeah.
like that because you talk about that. It's is it emotion or is it gain? Is that what it is?
Yeah, push of emotion. So something's happened that's made you, I'm going to go and hurt you. Or
Yeah,
pull of emotion. Well, if I hurt you, I'm going to feel something and I want to feel it. Or gain by killing you. There's something I want and I've got to hurt you and kill you to get it.
right.
It just and whatever murder you come up with, it will come down to one of those three things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, they are talking about that. Why? The biggest question. Just
Yeah.
checking here to see if there were any other. Not seeing any questions. If I miss your question, please put it in there again. Okay. So Crafty Annie had asked me a question. If you met the younger you, what advice would you give yourself before becoming a detective?
Oh, I've never been asked that question. I've been asked a lot of questions. I've never
I
been
thought
asked
that
that
was
one.
really good.
That is a really good one, isn't it?
It's like
Um,
self-reflection.
yeah. So the detective I was at the end was very different to the detective I was at the beginning of my career. Um, and the younger me just wanted to run out and chase after people and have a fight with them and arrest them and stuff like that, which is
Right?
all well and good, but it doesn't get you the conviction at court. And when I look back at my career as a younger detective, I kind of think to myself, blimey, how did we get convictions? Because I didn't do half the stuff that I did. I mean, doing murder does focus your mind because it's defended by like the top lawyers, and if you don't get it right, they'll get off. So that really focuses your mind to get it right. But yeah, I do. I'd give myself my book. So have a read of that.
That's a good answer.
Have a read of that.
That's a good answer. I
And
wrote
try
it
that from
here.
the beginning of your career, not just at the end.
That's good. And I did want to know this too, and I want to know if there's like a difference. Maybe we haven't actually introduced who you are. Or did I? Did I even say who you are?
Oh, my name's there.
I did say you wrote this book, but
See.
can you talk briefly about how long were you a detective and where you changed? Because I know you also did a little bit in terrorism also. So
yeah. So
was there
in a
split in
nutshell,
there?
I'm in a nutshell. I love that. I'm in a nutshell. In a nutshell, so I started the police in 1991, and in the UK, certainly back then, it's changed a little bit now. But it's in the UK, you had to do a couple of years in uniform on the street. But I ended up doing 6 years because I quite enjoyed it, and it was a good grounding for police work. So a lot of the work you do in detective work it's transfers from what you do in uniform. So you're stopping and talking to people. You're trying to spot if they're lying to you. You got to get information from witnesses. So, but I did enjoy that. And then I got asked to go and work on, it's called a crime squad. It's like a drug squad. I went and worked on that for a while and thought, actually, I quite like this, and sort of got drawn down the detective route. And I became a detective in 2000. So about eight years and a bit after I joined. Did a couple more years locally, so investigating robberies, serious crime like robberies, rapes, burglaries, that kind of thing. And then we used to have these adverts used to come out for new jobs, and one of them come out to work on the anti-terrorist branch, and I didn't have a clue. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting, dealing with terrorists. I didn't know anyone that did it, and I thought I'll put in an application, never expecting to get on it because it's quite difficult to get on. And I somehow got on, and I did about 3 years there. Which I really enjoyed, and some of the highlights of my career, I would say, were there. Although in murder was where I found my feet. Got promoted and went back to a police station for a while and did robbery, and then rape, and then on murder teams in 2009, and then I never left for. I had about 6 months to go and do some gangs when I got promoted to DI, but I got back very quickly and stayed there till I retired. Yeah, murder was my calling, if you like. I really enjoyed it.
Did you learn anything in that terrorism, investigating some of that stuff? Did you learn anything that really helped you with the other stuff, or is it completely different? Do you feel like their minds are different?
Yeah, they are really. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about interviewing people, interviewing terrorists is a different world. So in the UK, when we arrest someone, we've got 24 hours with them. By a senior police officer, you can extend it to 36, and then you can go to court and get warrants for further detention for a maximum of 4 days. But for terrorists, you have them for 14 days. So it's a very different experience when you're interviewing someone and you got them for all that time, so you can build up a rapport with them. And my technique was, good cop, bad cop. So the premise of good cop, bad cop is someone's nasty and someone swoops in and rescues them. But I used to do it on my own. So I was good cop, then bad cop, sort of flipped on itself. So I'd be your friend. I'd be their friend for the best part of 2 weeks, and really build up a rapport with them. And it's much harder being interviewed by someone who you really, really like. And I was, every day I'd be bringing them out of the cell. I'd be giving them meals. I'd be having laughs and jokes with them. So really building up that rapport. So then by the end, what I would do is I would become the bad cop, which is much more impactful than someone else coming in. It's suddenly your friend isn't your friend anymore, who suddenly is leaning over the table, is right in your face, is the tone has changed. They're really telling you that you're going to prison, blah, blah, blah. All the horrible things that I can put onto them that their future holds. And it just makes it much, much more difficult for them not to talk to you, or some, they don't talk to you, but it makes it much harder and more impactful on them. But you can't do that when you're dealing with someone for 24 hours. And in that
Huh.
time, you might only get to interview them for 2 or 3 hours, or if it's a really long interview, it might be 4 or 5. You still can't build up that rapport, and you can't use those techniques. Not so much. You can, but they're watered down.
Mhm.
So yeah, on the terror, it really taught me how to get into people's psyche, and I don't do it now, obviously. I've left.
I would think,
Um,
like the terrorism stuff, there's more like a group mentality going on there. Like they're a part of something, kind of like the gang stuff in a way.
yeah, but it's what they plan and what they do goes beyond most of the murderers I've ever dealt with. It's not planned, it's spontaneous. It's that push of emotion. It's someone's been made angry, jealous, or something. That's
Okay.
generally what it is. Or you might have the domestic, where it's about power and control, or a robbery gone wrong, or something like that. But very few murders are really, really premeditated, where they're spending days or weeks planning them. But these terrorists spend months, if not years, planning, and they're so fanatical about it, and they're so convinced in what they're doing, and what they
Mm,
try and do goes way beyond any murder I'd have dealt with, like mass
right.
casualties, really, really horrible ways of people suffering and dying. That's what they're planning, and yeah, that's you have
Wow.
to kind of detach yourself from that, because if you're dealing with someone and you want them to like you, you can't be sitting there going, "I hate you" because of what you're planning. You've got to
Right.
forget about that and just try
Oh
and
my
be their
gosh.
friend.
It would be really hard to pretend to be someone who was wanting to hurt that many people or something, or to make them
Oh
give
yeah,
them
these
some
these
sort
are
of
fanatics. They're not pretend. I mean,
yeah.
they're completely and utterly invested in what they're doing.
Um, let's see. Looking some questions for you. I had a question about regulations. So, in some of what I was reading when I was reading the book and trying to compare a little bit to what was going on here in the US, I noticed that there were a lot of things like one of them was the liaison, the family liaison. We
Hmm.
do have them, but what I was noticing is that it kind of some of this stuff is different from like state to state.
Hmm.
So depending on if they have the money for a liaison or the size of the county or if they, some regulation that is because, we have a lot of states' rights here, of course, and then that follows with our courts too, to some degree. Do you guys have that? Like the UK is this, or is it certain parts of the UK have different regulations
Yeah.
and things?
So the laws that I'm used to and work under are for England and Wales. Scotland has something different,
Okay.
kind of based on the same thing, but nuances. And Northern Ireland has something different as well. So within England itself, you wouldn't go from county to county, from city to city, and have different rules. They're all the same, which I think does make life a lot easier. And we don't have
Yeah.
multiple agencies, so we've got one police force per area. We have different police forces within different areas, but within one area, you wouldn't have dual responsibility. It's like one police force. That's something that I've struggled with. I've got to be honest, in the States, and I went to Illinois. I got invited to the Illinois Homicide Association annual conference, and I spoke to them there about how we do things over in the UK. And one of the things I was struck by when I was talking to people is, so two things really. One is that multi-agency approach, which I can't see can be beneficial to an investigation, because you've got
Yeah.
different egos, different priorities,
Yeah.
different experiences. I mean, it can't help. To me, it can't help. And then also, America seems to have a lot more red tape. So, for instance, if you've read my book, I love telephone evidence.
It's in my
the-
questions.
right. So the way we get telephone evidence here is quite simple, really. So if you want to get, so for instance, you got a telephone number, you want to know whose phone number is it, where did they top it up with credit, When did they register, all that kind of stuff. All you need is an inspector's authority, so 2-3 levels up. If you want to get the call data, so what calls they've made and what cell sites they've used, whatever, it's the superintendent, police superintendent, so a couple levels above that. But obviously in the States it's different, and you've got to get court subpoenas and
Warrants.
warrants, and it just all, to me, makes everything seem that much harder, whereas we can get stuff instantly. In the States there's that red tape in between, and then when it comes to arresting people, we've our bar that we need to have grounds to arrest is very low. I mean, we arrest so many people, but there's no repercussions for it. We wouldn't go to court and they'd say, well, you've arrested 4 people for this job, there must be someone else. It doesn't work like that. There's no comeback if you arrest other people,
Right.
Whereas I know in the States it's different. If you've arrested someone, they can then go, well,
Right.
I mean, they can use that as a defense. So there's difference in the red tape. To me, makes the job sound harder. I've not done it, but it makes it sound a bit harder in the States.
Mm-hmm. I heard you talk a little bit about that on the Delphi case. I think that was where first time I heard you talk about that it was very confusing because you had the locals and but you have something similar to the FBI, don't you?
No, not really. We've got something called the National Crime Agency, but they take responsibility for certain crimes such as human trafficking, major paedophile rings, that kind of thing. Whereas for all other types of crime like murders and robberies and that kind of thing, that's not. Sorry, excuse me 1 second. That's only the responsibility of the police force, and so the NCA can also provide some experts to help you with your inquiry, but there's never a conflict around whose responsibility it is. The only conflict might come is if, so you've got neighbouring police forces and there's cross-border, so someone's committed a crime here, then committed a crime there. There might be some issues around that. But when it comes to Delphi, there were so many different interested parties, weren't there? And it was who was in charge.
Yeah.
Which again, it can't have helped.
Yeah, I know it. We have found out though that in that they were holding on to this stuff for a bit, and not giving up some of what they knew. That's what it appears. We'll find out when it goes to trial, but
yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens when it does go to trial.
I know it. Of course, I'm knee deep in the Alec Murdaugh trial right now. I don't know if you've paid any. That was another one of my questions. Do you watch trials or any of these cases? Are you following anything that like interests you?
No.
Or?
No. So to me, it's always been a bit of a busman's holiday. If you're spending all day investigating murders, the last thing you want to do when you come home is watch about murders. So I would watch things. I would watch would be complete escapism, like Game of Thrones or something like that.
Yes.
And yeah, and
I love
it's only really since
yeah,
he's got a program coming, isn't he, called Snow? I can't wait for that.
What?
Yeah,
I haven't heard about that. I see. I don't get regular TV, so some of the stuff that comes out, I don't hear about it, and then it's like, oh, where did that come from? You know?
Yeah, I don't know when it is. Whether
it's,
I don't know if it's this year or next year or when it is.
Oh, exciting!
Yeah, and it's only since I did start my YouTube channel that I got involved in Delphi. But now my head's in Jack the Ripper, and I've got space for anyone else. So,
Did you want to talk a little bit about that? About you writing this book? Because some people don't realize that you are writing a book about Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, so my first book I self-published originally. So people know about publishing books, but there's 2 major routes that you go down. You either do it all yourself or you get a publisher. And I decided to do it myself because it suited my timescales. And then I went on this daytime TV program in the United Kingdom that's quite popular. And the book went a bit mad for a day or 2. And some publishers saw it and said, look, we would consider selling us the rights. And okay, I'll sell you the rights. And they said, will you write another one? And I hadn't planned to, but in my mind, I always thought if I did, it would be a modern day look at Jack the Ripper. And I mentioned it, and they said, oh, we've been looking to do something with Jack the Ripper. Would you? So it kind of just happened. And then
that's good.
Yeah. So it's a modern day look at Jack the Ripper, how we would investigate it now, how does that compare to back then, and just my eyes on my interpretation of some of the evidence.
That's great. That's great. I like that. Because there's a lot of true crime channels out there, and they're more what I would call reactive. So something's going on, they're going to come on and give their opinion. I don't see that many out there. There's a couple out there that I watched, and there may be more that say, listen, if I was looking at this as an investigator or as a whatever, you know what I'm saying? There's very few of those, really.
Yeah.
This is what we would do. This is what I would do. You know, I think that's kind of rare, really.
Yeah. Although I kind of stepped back from YouTube, so it's I mean, Jill, I don't know if people appreciate how much our work is. It's a lot of work, isn't it?
Okay, so writing the book takes. I mean, that's what I told them the other day. I said, you know, as far as writing the book, as far as what I know about it, is that it's what we call a job.
Yeah.
You're doing book stuff. This is,
Yeah.
and you're researching too, right? So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's my full-time job at the moment, so yeah,
right.
that's what I'm doing.
And how long does it really take on something like this? What do you think is the time frame for actually writing the book and getting it out there?
Trying to think when I started writing it, probably about April. So it would have been about a year. It would have been about a year from starting writing to getting it into the publisher's first draft.
Crazy Poppy Lady, good to see you. And then, would you have access to original case file? Anything from the original case file when you're writing your book?
So the joy of writing about Jack the Ripper is it's a world where everything that could have been found, but basically there might be something else lurking out there, has been found. And there are some very, very good books that contain all that information, and they're like reference books. So my book isn't about trying to find new information. It's about interpreting the information that's already out there.
Okay.
So thankfully, I don't have to do that. I'm working on the back of other people's work.
I want to know how you feel. I think I know the answer to some of this. How do you feel about cadaver dogs, handwriting analysis, body language analysis, and footwear analysis? Give us a little synopsis about what you think.
All of them. Well, cadaver dogs are different. Cadaver dogs are different because they serve a purpose. As long as you understand what it is they're trying to do, they're not evidence. They're pointing you in the direction of where the evidence is. So if a cadaver dog doesn't find something, that doesn't mean you can interpret that there was never anything there. It just means that the cadaver dog hasn't found it. The other, so handwriting experts, and what was the other one? Sorry, there was a
body language analysis, like watching somebody in an interview, that kind of thing.
Yeah, handwriting, whenever we used it, it was never definitive. So it would be an opinion, and they'd base it on a sliding. I can't remember what the scales were, but it would be strong support or weak support. I can't remember what they did.
Okay.
So, and it was rare, actually, especially these days. Who writes letters? Nobody writes letters anymore.
Well, that's true.
So it's actually quite rare. So everyone's on their phone. So actual handwriting experts is few and far between that I came across them, because it just never really became relevant. Body language experts, I've not got a lot of time for.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah. And the reason being is because they are doing half a job. So as a police officer, so I learnt my trade on the street. I'd stop cars, for instance. I'd stop in my time. I can't even look, hundreds, thousands of cars or whatever I've stopped. Mm-hmm. And straight away, I'd be talking to someone, but you're looking as much as you're listening, and you'd be looking for signs. So what you'd be looking for is signs of stress. So when someone's lying, unless they're a very good liar or they're a psychopath or something, there's going to be some sort of sign of stress. Everyone's different. It could be like a little tick under the eye. They can't look you in the eye. or they look at the eye too much, or they stumble their words. Everybody's got their own. They call it a tick,
I was just gonna
a
say
tell,
tick.
don't they? A
Yeah.
tell. Sorry, when they're playing cards, they call it a tell. Everybody's different, but what it is a sign of stress, no more than that. So you can be stressed. So, for instance, as a police officer, if I stop someone driving a car, if you get stopped, Jill, and by a police officer, you'd feel a sense of stress, even if you've done nothing wrong. You'd start. Am I going to get into trouble?
You're kind of like a little nervous, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I would be the same because they're police officers, and if you don't know what you've done, they could have found something. You could be in trouble. So just talking to a police officer will cause stress, and that can manifest in a little tick, or they can't look you in the eye, or so that doesn't mean they're lying, but they could be lying. So to me, those signs of stress that indicate someone could be lying need to be explored, and also as well what you need to do. So I would have this technique when I was whenever I dealt with anybody as a police officer, I would always try and make them be as relaxed as possible. I wasn't overbearing. I always sound two-faced when I talk about what my techniques, but I was your friend. So I was trying to make you as relaxed as possible. Because once someone's relaxed and then they signs shows, so you've got a baseline basically. What you're doing is, this is you acting normally. Then I hit you with a question that you don't like and you don't want to answer. Then the stress comes out. And then you can say, okay, well, you weren't acting like that before. Now I've put you under this pressure. Now your eye's going. Now you can't look me in the eye. That's a better sign than if someone's doing it straight away and they're stressed because the police officer's talking to you. But that's only the beginning. That's like the start of it. So then you've got to explore it, and you've got to say, right, okay, well, if these signs of stress, are they lying or aren't they lying? And then what you would do is you'd explore the question you're asking, you explore their answer. And only after you've done all that and you kind of eliminated and you work your way through, can you say, actually, you're lying. So what I see from body language experts is they are only doing that first bit where they're looking for signs of stress. And you see them on telly. And there was another case, Summer Wells, and the parents, everyone was look at what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, they're on national TV being asked questions that they know people are looking at them for answers. That people are going,
right.
They think I'm guilty. Whatever I do, people are going to think I'm guilty. Yeah. How do I react? I'm nervous. I'm under stress, and that will manifest in signs that could be construed as lying. So the body language experts, for me, are just looking for those initial signs that we would then follow up on. So I say they're doing half a job. So that's why I don't believe in it.
Interesting. You know, I can't remember his name. I did talk about it when we covered the part in your book about footmarks, because that's different. Footmarks and footprints are different.
Yeah, or finger marks and fingerprints are so it's a mark is what's left, and a print is what you take off of someone.
But you talked about, I know there's experts in foot marks. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you put a lot into that, as far as like, because they're doing, like, I found this shoe.
They have, but they need to find it straight away, because what they're looking for, they're not looking for he's wearing Nike shoes. I mean, everybody could be wearing those same shoes. Not everyone, but loads of people could be wearing those same shoes. So that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for the wear. So when you wear your shoes or I wear my shoes, we all walk differently.
Oh, yeah.
And it creates different wear on your shoes. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the different wear or nicks or bits have come out of it, whatever it is that makes that shoe unique. But if you get that straight away, then that can be good evidence. But if you get that shoe a month or two later, where they've worn it more, then it could cause issues. So it's one of those things where it can be good, but under certain circumstances. But if someone's wearing shoes to a crime scene, what's much better is to get DNA on their shoe, not the footmark. Footmark can be good, but under certain circumstances, and it's still only opinion. It's not science. It's opinion. So it still requires that forensic scientist to say, in my opinion, this shoe matches that one, and they can say, because look, if you look at this, you look at that, But then if I'm defending, I would say, well, who else wears their shoes like that? Maybe someone else. You know what I mean? So it's not like DNA or fingerprints where you can say that is a match. It's still opinion.
I see, I feel like so much of what's gone on in the last few years has kind of gotten away from fingerprinting, because that used to be before DNA. You had
Yeah.
circumstantial evidence and you had fingerprints.
Yeah.
We could, they as far as blood went, they could say it's the same type of blood, but they couldn't say it was the same blood as that person. And I'm telling you, the DNA has gone berserk with how they have, down to, I can't believe the DNA they're pulling off of the tiniest scrap of evidence. It's crazy. Some of these things I've been listening to, it's like, wow, that's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, you'll know in the book, my favorite type of evidence was a fingerprint, and it would always be a fingerprint in blood, because fingerprints are unique to you, and if you put it, not only is it unique to
their
you,
blood's on it.
The blood's on it, so at times when it happened.
Yeah.
DNA causes its own problems because it's so sensitive, especially when you're talking about where you can get down to the minutest piece of DNA. It's so easily transferable. It can be a police officer walking in, and if they've been to one crime scene and moved to another, they can move evidence with them. So DNA is good, but it does have to be dealt with. That's why whenever I watch a TV program with cops on it, I always get frustrated when I see them. Like, you'll see all these forensic officers with the white suits and the masks and whatever, and I know why they do it, because it's not good TV to have your main star and you can only see their eyes. But they walk in with a suit on, and they've just had a fight with a suspect earlier, then they walked into the scene, and it's just anything like that, you would lose a job. It would be thrown out of court. So yeah.
See, I know how you feel about this, with all the garb, having all the suits and all the garb on. And I was going to ask you about that, because I can't remember what you said. I was going to go back and look at the book, didn't have a minute, but did you wear stuff outside in a crimes, like an outdoor crime scene? This has come into play in the Alec Murdaugh trial, where they walked all over that crime scene and nobody had a suit on. They didn't even have booties on.
That's just stupid. Sorry.
I thought, oh, Steven wouldn't like this.
Yeah, inside or outside, it doesn't matter, because it's the same principle.
Okay.
What you're looking for is DNA, and if you find DNA, what you have to prove to a court, certainly in the UK, is how we work. You have to prove to a court, I found that DNA in such a way that it couldn't have got there any other way. It couldn't have been a police officer that has just been talking to the suspect, or been to a different address and come here and it's on their shoe and fallen off. That's why you wear overshoes, you wear a full suit, gloves, we wear 2 pairs of gloves, we wear a mask. Everything is to protect the integrity of DNA. I remember years ago, I think I'm right in saying this, it was I think it was O.J. Simpson. And the officers went into the scene and they come out and they were bringing exhibits out within bags, but the bags weren't sealed.
Yes, that was a big deal.
So you have to seal the bags with it, because otherwise, as soon as you bring it out, well, at what point are you sealing it? What else is going in? Anything that's gone in, did it come in after you've come out of the address? So we deal with crime scenes so rigidly, but you have to, because that case, I don't know that case, and I don't. But at court, if we'd done a crime scene and we weren't in the protective clothing, and the defense had a photograph of it or whatever we found, goodbye, we're not going to be able to use it. So
see, that's kind of I feel like it neutralizes a lot of the evidence. I mean, they're going to be able to prove certain things, but other things are going to be useless, right?
Yeah. So fingerprints, if you found a fingerprint, you're fine with that, because you can't cross-contaminate a fingerprint unless you're carrying around a thumb with you and going around the scene. We don't do that. But DNA is so easy. When you're talking about microscopic, the tiniest, if it's a little hair, so it's a hair could have been on the detective, could have been talking to the suspect, got a hair on him and it fell off. Or they've gone through one crime scene where there's blood on their shoe. They've walked through and a little flake of blood has dropped off into the scene. So when you look at it, go, oh look, great, we've got some blood here, it belongs to the victim or whatever it is. Well, in actual fact, it's not. It's the blood from over there, but we've just brought it in with us.
Man. Okay. I don't know how long you want to talk, so
oh no, I'm fine. You know me, I can talk for hours.
Oh my goodness. I might have to get more coffee though.
I saw a question from Sandy Michaels actually.
Yes,
whilst I'm talking about.
Okay, so here's one. She had a couple, but here's one.
Oh, she's got a couple. I didn't see that one. So just quickly, if I answer the other one whilst we're talking about DNA. So she said, what do you think about ancestry DNA to find suspects?
Yes.
Every tool that you've got is brilliant. I mean, it's not going to solve you the case, but it can point you in the right direction. You'd still need to go and find the person who left the DNA. But if you can use genealogy to get to that person in the first place, then brilliant. Yeah, all tools are available.
Anything that will narrow things down, right? Because you're trying to, what was it? You talked about this at one point. I forget what all I'm dyslexic and I lose stuff. I know it's there, just can't access it.
I'm the same, but it's age.
Can't get in there and grab it. It's like it's on the disc. Anyway, something about how you narrow things down. I forget what part of the book that was in.
That might have been hypotheses. That might have been.
Yes, I think it was. And so you but then you come down to more towards a motive, right?
Yeah. So when you don't know an awful lot about a murder's happened, you don't know an awful lot, but you need to investigate it. So you can't just go, let's investigate that murder. It doesn't work like that. You have to investigate something. So if you've got no information at all, you've got a dead body, the most simple hypothesis you can use is they were killed by someone they know, they were killed by someone they didn't know. And straight away, well, who do they know? We can investigate them. So just by making that hypothesis and that decision, your detectives can go and investigate something. At the same time, they're investigating that. If they didn't know them, well, are they in an area where people are being attacked? And that so just by making that posing those two simple questions, hypotheses, you're really focusing. And no matter what happens, it has to be one of those things. They have to have been killed by someone they know or they don't know. Then as more information comes in, then you can start narrowing it down. And you go, okay, well, this person's in a relationship, someone who's violent, there's been reports in the past. So you can adapt the hypotheses and then you can investigate that person. So, you can't just say, let's investigate a murder. You have to investigate something. You have to investigate a theory. Right. But not a wild theory. It has to be based on logic and experience and the information you got in front of you.
This was her other question. If somebody says no comment, how do you deal with that? If you can't get anything out of them, I mean, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so that's really, really common. In the UK, the solicitors will say nothing. And terrorists will literally say nothing. They'll just won't answer you. They won't even give you their name. Whereas most criminals will just say no comment to what you say. But you don't just give up because you've still got things you need to put to them. So when you go to court, we have what's known as a caution. Rather than, we don't have Miranda like you have in the States. We have a caution. And the caution is you do not have to say anything. It may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. So that's really important. So you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. So you have to put the questions to them. For instance, what were you doing there? Why were you there? Cover certain defences that they could bring up. So that when you go to court, the court can say, well, actually, you were asked that back then, you've not said anything. And then what the judge can do, the judge can direct the jury that they can draw an inference. You can say, you can draw an inference of their guilt from the fact they had a chance to answer the question in the police station. They chose not to, and they're only coming out with it now. So you still have to cover all your questions. You have to cover everything that you think might come out at court. But then I had another technique that I used to use, which was quite impactful in getting people to talk to you. So it's very easy to sit there and say no comment. So what I always tried to do was take them out of the police room, out of the police station, and in their mind transport them to the trial and make them look at themselves on the stand as a jury member. Right. It's very easy for you right now to say no comment to me. I get that. Your solicitor said no comment, but your solicitor isn't going to be there giving evidence. It's going to be you. It's going to be you on trial. It's going to be the jury looking at you. And you're going to be asked these questions. And they're going to look and they're going to say, well, why is it that you can't tell me the answer to this question? Why can't you answer me? What are they going to think? They're going to think it's because you're guilty, isn't it? This is your chance. This is your chance now. And you'd build on it and you try and make it seem like, well, actually, it's a right risk I'm taking by not doing it. And if you put it on them enough, they'll sit there and they'll go, and they will. And quite often they'll talk to you because they don't want to be in the position that you're putting them in, because it's very easy to hide behind a solicitor in a police station. But if you then transport yourself to the trial and realize it's all coming on top and you had your chance now and you missed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I used to do. And it was a technique that worked quite well.
That's cool. I like that. Annie asked, which of your training skills do you think were the most helpful?
Oh, that's a good question. So the honest answer to that is training for me is about doing the job. Mm-hmm. So when you become a detective, you go along and we did a 6-week course on how to do certain things. And it's like, so for instance, exhibit. So I'm talking about putting a paper suit on. You'd have a few days of doing that. So they teach you how to go into a scene, how to bag something up, what bags they should go in with, they should go in boxes, and all the stuff around that. But it's doing the job where you actually really learn, where you're in a high pressure situation. The same with interviewing. They teach you how to interview. That's not the same as interviewing a police officer that's pretending to be a suspect.
Right.
It's completely different to interviewing someone for real. And all the techniques that I've talked about, no one ever taught me that. That was over years of doing it and realizing what worked for me. So in terms of training, they give you the basic tools to go off and do the job, but actually putting it into practice is where you really learn, and you realize that what they've taught you in the classroom will only really work in a classroom. You have to adapt it to the real world, basically.
You know, I could say the very same thing. I was a hairstylist for 35 years. And if somebody had asked me that, I would have answered it exactly the same.
Yeah.
Isn't that strange? Because to be honest, once you start and you have that actual person, moving, talking, breathing person to deal with, nothing really is going to, you can't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and every person you cut their hair, they're different, aren't they? They've got different styles of hair. They've got different wants and needs, and
yeah. So that's it. That's interesting, because I wouldn't have thought of it being the same. You know, I guess that
it's like driving a car, isn't it? When you have your driving lessons, they teach you how to drive, but that doesn't make you a driver, does it? You only really learn to drive when you've been driving for years and you can understand the hazards and the different road conditions and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
People just giving you, I think it's probably the same in most things in life, isn't it? People give you the tools to start off to actually go and do the process of learning.
See, and that's what I like about like your book and the way that you explain things. It kind of makes things sound more, it's not as complicated, you know, because
you're I'm a simple man with simple minds. So that's how I explain things.
It's not that. No, you're definitely not that. You're not simple. But I think that, like, I guess people say keep it simple, stupid, or whatever. You know, that you know, if you, like you were talking about having, well, it's either this or it's that. You know, having those things, developing those things over the years that help you. It's like we'll go back to the hair. I would go to a hair show, and I tell you, they're crazy. And the people that go to them are really, if you're a people watcher, go to a hair show. It's very interesting. And I would go and I'd sit in a class and stuff like that. And it's like, Okay, but that's really the same thing I've been doing. They're just doing it kind of different and calling it something else.
Do you find though
It's
in life that
simple
there are
things.
many people want to overcomplicate things in order
Yes,
to make themselves look more clever or more important?
like
Um,
reinventing the wheel, you know?
yeah,
And I
I
think it,
always think boil something down to its most basic form, and
mhm,
people understand it, and they can do it themselves, can't they? Rather than trying to make it complicated and
yeah,
make yourself look good in the process.
yeah, that's exactly it. Yep. Okay. I have a question from Mr. Fiber, and I think that it's probably one that others are going to want to know too. He asks, "What case affected you the most personally, emotionally in your career?"
Yeah, I've been asked this a few times, and I always come back to the same answer, and it's children.
Yeah.
Um, Whenever I've dealt with children, and I couldn't even put a figure on how many dead bodies I've seen. Hundreds. I can't even think about it. How many of them can I recall if I close my eyes? Very few, very, very few. But I can see all the children. And it's something that I think I'll always carry with me. And it's something I never got used to. When you become a murder detective, you don't suddenly become a murder detective overnight. You've had a build up to it. And so for instance, a terrorism, when I dealt with a terrorist scene, I was dealing with that. I didn't suddenly get parachuted in and you got to go and deal with this bomb scene.
Yeah.
I'd spent at that point 14 years as a police officer dealing with death, injury, and everything, and you kind of build up a resilience. So it allows you to do the job without dwelling on what you're seeing. It's a dead body is just that. It's a dead body. You don't see it as a person. I don't want to sound that in a callous way, but in
Well, I
order
mean,
for you to do your job,
they're not really there anymore, right? I mean, is that
yeah,
kind of how
that is
you?
true. Yeah, there is definitely something about a dead person that I mean, it sounds stupid, but there's something different about a dead body and someone sleeping. There's something missing. There's something even if you don't know, I don't know. There's just something missing. But that resilience and that not 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 humanizing the person, if you know what I mean, not making it personal, allows you to be professional and you can do your job. But it's something I never really could do with children. That was always hard. Seeing a dead child, going to a post-mortem or an autopsy with a child was always hard. And in many ways, I'm pleased, because you do sometimes worry that you've lost a bit of
Oh,
your humanity. But if you know you're affected by children, then you still got it. You know what I mean? There's still something inside you that you're not a complete robot psychopath. You can actually still
yeah.
you can still feel. So it would always, for me, the children.
I would be. I don't even know whether I could, you know, because that it's tough with kids. And something that is dear to my heart, not just the children, but because I am a victim, and that is the domestic violence stuff. And
Mm.
there was something in there, and I got a little excited when I read, and you said something in a footnote in the book about it. It's too bad that more emphasis is not placed on handling some of this domestic violence before it gets there,
Mm.
because so many of those cases came out of that power control dynamic,
Yeah.
and that domestic violence is so about that. It's so about power and control, you
But
know.
unless you've lived it, people don't see that, do they? What you tend to see, but I've written about it in the book. When people report on domestic murders, what they tend to focus in on is that incident. So, for instance, the man's lost his temper or something like that, as if that's the reason why he's killed her.
Mhm.
But that losing his temper is just a part of that build up
Right.
of power and control, and the violence is used to exert power and exert control. Um, so when it comes to, so for instance, when we come to, in the UK, we're very good at recording homicides and statistics around it. So for instance, age of victim, relationship with the victim and the suspect, where the location. There's all kinds of statistics we use. And one of them is motive. And there is no motive within that for control. There's lots for loss of temper or that kind of thing.
Right.
But it's like, well, all those murders where you're calling it as a loss of temper, that's not a loss of temper. That's part of a systematic control and power
Right.
over this person over months or years. And I still think we're not grasping that. We're not understanding that. And until you understand the root cause, you can't put it right, can you?
Right. Right. And I don't, I'm not saying it fascinates me. I'm saying that it's interesting to me when you think about that control, why that person needs that. You know, and everybody wants to go to the nurture nature thing, you know, when it comes to that. Well, okay, it was, and you have so much emphasis. Well, this guy grew up without a mother, or this guy grew up without a father. But what makes you take it there? What makes you take you from being, I know what I should do and what I shouldn't do, to I'm just going to do it? You know, what makes them that control? That's where it's like, you know, they shouldn't do it, and they know they shouldn't do it, but they do because they want that control. You know, it's fascinating how people get from there to there so easily.
It's just so common, isn't it? And I mean, this isn't my. I've never dealt on. So we have units that deal purely with domestic violence, and I've never worked on that. So, but I've only ever seen the result, and that's like the extreme of what's happened. And whenever you look at it, it's not a one-off incident. It's a build up over time. And to me, it's I don't know what the answer is. That's not for me to give. But to me, it's all about identifying the red flags and trying to put in processes that could get the person out of there. Dealing with what's going on inside that person's mind, to me, is the two different things as to why is he doing it and how can you stop him. But we should be better at identifying where it's likely to end up at that position where someone is dead. And I think that's where
more help.
100%, yeah. And I think that's where we need to put our efforts if we want to try and bring it. In the UK, like talking about these statistics, I think it's something like in the year that I looked at, it was 47% of women that were murdered by a partner or ex-partner. Which is
crazy.
It's just crazy, isn't it?
That's a crazy amount.
We have this. We've had a couple of high-profile murders recently in the UK where women have been killed by being abducted on the street, one or two, and there was a real movement of women should be safe walking home, which I completely agree with, 100%. But to me, it kind of misses a point, and you're kind of ignoring the fact that yes, there's a couple of high-profile cases where women have been killed on the way home, but women are much more likely to be killed once they get home. It's like, why are we putting all our efforts as we? And I'm not saying it should be one or the other, but I think but it feels like we're ignoring the one that is the real problem and focusing on the one that's high-profile. And it's those women that are getting murdered in their home, and we never hear about it because the news don't want to know that. And I write about this in the book, and I do feel that there's the institutions that really run the countries still, like the media outlets, the police, the court system, they're still male dominated, and you do wonder what would happen if it was the other way around, wouldn't you? If it was women that were killing men, there would be much more done about it, wouldn't there? And it wouldn't almost be brushed under the carpet as if it's
what is going on?
Things.
That's what it'd be. What our women have just gone berserk? What's going on?
But it's kind of accepted by society, and it shouldn't. It just shouldn't.
Right. And I'm with you on that. Sandy had another one. Is there a case in your career was not solved and became a cold case?
Yeah, so I don't know the figure off the top of my head, but we in London we solve roughly over the course of my career roughly about 90% of murders. So I would imagine probably. So that would probably be about one murder a year over 12. So there's probably about a dozen or so murders that we didn't solve. So in terms of would they become a cold case? Well, at Scotland Yard where I worked, murders never, and they never, they're put on hold. So you'll get to a point and you say, well, we can't, we've done everything we can. You'll have to go to senior officers, and you'll have a panel. It'll be senior officers, it'll be members of the public, it'll be all sorts of people who are making sure that you've done everything you can before you say, look, we just can't go any further. Then that will be put on hold, and it gets reviewed every. I think it's 2 years. I think it's
Really?
been out there. I think it's 2 years, either 2 years or 3 years. It gets reviewed, and someone will come along and say, right, here's this murder. Is anything else new? Any new techniques around DNA or fingerprinting or something like that? Is there
That's
something we could
interesting.
do? And then if it is, then it'll get reopened and it will go back to either the same murder team or another murder team. So
Because I don't think that we have, again, I don't think we have that across the board here. Like, cold case detectives, we're all fascinated with the cold. I'm fascinated with cold cases. I love to know that something changed somewhere, some new evidence came in, and they were either able to exonerate somebody or say,
yeah,
you may be 70, but you did this when you were 20. Guess what?
yeah,
We figured it out, so it fascinates me. But I don't think all departments I don't know that they all have cold case
yeah,
departments. I don't think they have review board, somebody who reviews things. I think it's going to be up to like the superintendent or whatever they call him, captains or whoever they are in charge, that would probably say, I need John, you take these files and go work on this.
yeah.
I
Because
don't
things
think it's the
change, and
standard.
and it's not just the information around like science. It's also the people's attitudes may change. So if I've got loyalty to someone now and I know they've committed a murder, in 10 years' time, that loyalty might not be there. So if you revisit the witnesses, or if sometimes they'll come forward, but there's always that chance when you re-speak to people, they might say, well, actually, I'm not in that gang anymore, or I'm not seeing that person anymore. Yeah, I didn't tell you this back then, but actually I've got this information. So you things change. So it is always good to just keep on top of it and just say, look, all right, we might just be told the same thing, or we might be told to F off, but we might as well give it a go.
Okay. Telephones. So let's talk about your fascination with phone evidence.
Yeah, I love it. It's
What is it about it and where did all that start? Because you talked a little bit about that in the book too, but
yeah, I think a lot of it is to do with how my brain works. I've got like one of those logical minds, and I like PowerPoint, like spreadsheets and that kind of thing. So the way we deal with phone evidence is we'll apply to a phone company, and they'll give us this gobbledygook that I can never understand. But we've got intelligence analysts that will put it onto a spreadsheet, and it literally is in chronological order, and it will show all the phone calls and text messages and stuff. Then what I would do is then overlay that with other information. So, for instance, if you can get into somebody's phone, you can get their WhatsApp messages, Instagram, any kind of social media messages. You overlay it with that, so that goes onto the spreadsheet. Then you get other fixed events. So, for instance, CCTV, when people can be seen on cameras. ANPR, I don't know if you have ANPR, so it's automatic number plate readers, where we've got cameras all around the country that read your number plate and report where you are at any one time. It's like Big Brother, but we've got access to that, so we overlay that. Financial transactions, anything that's a fixed time event, we then overlay it, and we have this. So this is what I used to just love doing, and it would paint such an amazing picture of people's movements and what they're doing at any one time in their life. And if you get someone's phone and they're using apps, they're connecting to cell masts, they're taking pictures that have got geo map printing on it, you can build up such a big picture of someone's life. And I can't think of many murders that we had where the phone evidence wasn't pivotal in some way, shape, or form, be it proving someone was lying or putting two people associating them when they said, "Oh, we don't know each other," but well, actually, why are you sending each other text messages? All that kind of thing.
Right.
And I just thought it was brilliant. And I would go in the box and give us evidence sometimes for days, and like the jury might be, "Oh God, not him again."
Okay, we're gonna talk about
It
the
was
phone
so
again.
important. It was so important. And it solved cases. It literally solved cases for us. It made the cases we had stronger. It was, and the reason I used to do it myself is because I used to get a bit of a control freak. So I used to get frustrated when I saw someone else doing it wrong. I'd be like, no, that's not. So in the end, it's like, right, it's my job. I'll do the phones. I shouldn't have done, but I'll take the phones because it needs to be done properly. And I just loved it. I became a bit of a phone bore within the team. Oh, here we go again, but it worked.
Well, I found it fascinating listening to some of the trials that I've been listening to. One of them was the Houderson case. I don't know if you've heard of it, where he killed his parents. And, you know, he Snapchatting with the girlfriend on the way to go dump the bodies. And of course, they figured all this out. But what fascinates me when I hear them talk about the cell phone stuff is that you're talking about cell mass. And what people don't realize is just because your phone pings on a cell tower doesn't mean you're close to it. You know, there's this area.
Well, it has to ping to somewhere because your phone's always connected, unless you're out in rural areas. Big Brother will know where you are at one point or another. You can't get away.
Yeah, I think they could find me pretty quickly.
Yeah. And also, you don't even have to be using your phone. So you've got apps running in the background. So you might think, oh, I'm driving down here. I'm not using my phone. I'm all right. But in your pocket, your phone's going, hello, Master. Hello, Master. And you're following them as you're going along. And they're like, well, they haven't actually used their phone, but the phone's told us where they are.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's fascinating too, because, you know, we may say, well, you know, the Big Brother thing or whatever, but look at what it does when it comes to stuff like this. You know, solves a lot of crime.
Yeah, and
especially now.
That's what we want ultimately, isn't it? If people commit a murder, we want them to face justice. And if you're going about yourself, or if you're going about your business innocently, then whatever you do on your phone is no one cares. But the moment you're committing a serious crime, then it's right that we should have access to that.
How much? I'm getting back because I'm on the Alec Murdaugh thing, but he's last couple of days. I think they gave him a chill pill because he's not been crying every single 5 minutes like he was in the first 4 days. But how much do you put, you know, into like emotions that you see coming out when you talk to somebody, whether they are, does that go back to that, you know, having to have some sort of baseline with them?
As in, are they lying if they're a witness or a
if
suspect?
they're lying or they're telling the truth, you know?
Yeah, so it's not just about the people you're arresting; it's the people you're taking statements from. And if you've got a witness, you want to make sure when you put them into the witness box that they're being truthful. You don't want to put, because it's just going to, your case will collapse if you start putting liars into the box. So it's just as important spotting a lie from a witness as it is a suspect. But again, given a statement is they may have just witnessed a murder and they're suddenly in a police station talking to the police. It's stressful. So again, it comes back to that, not assuming someone's signs of a lying or stress is a lie. But that's, again, it's something you learn doing the job, and you learn with experience. And you wouldn't put a police officer that's just come out of training school taking a statement from someone who's seen a murder. You'd use an experienced detective, and it's for that reason. I've just seen a name of someone from my channel, Lorna McKenzie. Hi, Lorna. You're right.
Oh, yes. Yes, Lorna's here. And Katie actually has some criminology. She's talking about she needs to go back and get her degree now.
All right.
She makes she makes knitting sacks, and she's a knitter and a crocheter and a crafty person. But she also has, I don't know how far she went with it, but she's saying she needs to go back. Crazy Poppy Lady was saying because she makes the little
Oh
pins
yeah,
for Poppy Day. That's
Hmm.
why her name. And she makes an ungodly amount of them. I don't know
Really?
how she does it.
that's
Yes. And passes
that's a
them
great
out.
cause.
And yes, she's
That's a great
very.
cause.
When her daughter was in uni in Cardiff, the house that she was told all the girls to be there before dark, and some salty reels where they handed them a whistle, so that guess she's saying that they didn't do much. Wasn't worried as much as other parents because she knew martial arts and had a strong kneecap. Uh,
Uh,
a year of
it's,
lockdown
I
made a
mean,
difference.
I've got mixed feelings about that. I'd be like, yeah, go, Poppy's daughter. But it was also a bit sad that we have these
Right.
conversations, isn't it? I
I
mean, as a
know.
parent of two
Yes.
daughters, I just hate that. Just and a son. I mean, to me, it's as important that my son understands what's right or wrong
Yes.
than worrying about my daughters. You know what I mean? You just think if every parent imparted told their sons how they should and shouldn't act, we probably wouldn't be having these conversations. Certainly not as much.
Right. Yeah. Because again, with girls, in a way, it's reactive. They're
Yeah,
having to
100%. Yeah.
react to the behavior of the guy. If the guy had better behavior to begin with, she wouldn't have to figure out how to react to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I've covered everything on my. Wow. Oh, let's see.
Sandy
Wait.
Sandy Michaels has asked a question about burner phones.
Yes.
So I can only talk about from the UK. I've seen the wire, so I don't really use burner phones there. But within the UK, so um, we've got two ways you can have a phone. You can have it on a phone contract where you pay monthly, and you have to have a credit check and all that kind of thing. So the phone company pretty much know who's using the phone. And then you've got a pay as you go where there is no legislation. You don't have to tell them anything. And what happens is criminals have these burner phones where they're not registered
Right.
to anybody. They change them regularly. So it doesn't take away the fact that we can use phone evidence against them. It just means you have to be a bit more clever in attributing the phone, because when you're using phone evidence, one of the most important thing is attribution. You have to say, well, this phone, a phone at the end of the day is a phone, but you have to put it in someone's hands. So the attribution is important. So just because someone's got a burner phone, but they're still phoning the same people. They're still phoning their mum and their sister and their brother, and then they're phoning a friend. So you can build up an idea of whose the phone is, and then you can do things like, if you've got CCTV and you see someone on a phone, you can look at the times they're on CCTV to when the phone's being used. There's all kind of methods you can use, but you just have to be a bit more clever. They think they're being clever, but we're generally a little bit cleverer than them, thankfully. And also, as well, another thing with burner phones is when you get them, they tend to be rubbishy phones in the UK, where they're normally Nokias. Whereas the smartphones, the one that people don't use for their criminal activity, it tends to be like iPhones, and iPhones can be very difficult to get into because they're designed that way. Whereas burner phones are really easy to get into. So quite often they think they're being clever because they've got this burner phone, but it gives us more evidence than the iPhone that's in their pocket we can't get into because of the security.
Oh my gosh. That's interesting. So
Don't tell them that. Don't tell them that. It's just
I
between
know,
us.
right? She's halfway to her master's in criminal and forensic biology.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
I knew she had some hours, so.
You should have her on. She sounds more than me.
Well, we should.
Yeah.
We should. Was there something else? I did have one. Lorna wants to know how you're adjusting to becoming a crime expert on TV and radio than the true crime circuit.
It's much easier. I can't be honest. No nights.
Just show
There's
up
no
and
long
talk,
hours.
right?
Yeah, there's no long hours. There's no deadlines from the Crown Prosecution Service, like the district attorney type thing. You got to have this paperwork in and going in to give evidence at court and having really clever lawyers trying to make you look stupid. I mean, it's just much easier. People are generally nice to you when they talk to you now. Like they ask you questions in a I want to know the answer way, not in an I'm asking questions to make you look stupid way. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. There's a few things I've got sort of in the pipeline that may happen soon. I just wouldn't have ever thought of.
Well, I noticed you posted something about Crime Con, and that one is going to be when is that? That's in like
It's June, yeah.
June.
So I'm like a permanent fixture now at CrimeCon in the UK. It's just been my third. I've only been out like 18 months. No, less than that, 14 months.
I was so upset that I couldn't go to Illinois. It was like, oh my God, I want to go to Illinois. And I have family in Illinois that I could stay with, and it's like, oh, I wish I could go.
Yeah, that was a good experience. Yeah. So yeah, at the moment I'm trying not to do an awful lot. I just got to get this book done. And I'm never writing another book again. It's doing my head in this one. And then we'll see. We'll see where it goes. So, yeah.
3,000.
I just get approached by these, and most of it I turn down, and it's like I'm not really interested in doing that. But I just get LinkedIn is the most amazing thing in the world. On LinkedIn, you just get these people just applying, messaging. Have you thought of doing this? And you're like, oh, no, I haven't actually. That sounds interesting.
I have never used it. I've had people that said, hey, come join me on LinkedIn. Hook up with me on LinkedIn. Add your business stuff and this, that, and the other, and I've never even looked at it. There's so many out there. I can only keep up with so much.
I just tend to do Instagram, and
I know
I like Instagram because I don't touch Twitter because I think it's just this really toxic, horrible place. So I don't do that as a business. Facebook is a bit dead. So I just tend to do Instagram, and what I like about Instagram is the only people that can comment on my stuff are people I follow. So I know I've not got to deal with trolls or anything like that. And LinkedIn is a professional place, so it tends to be a bit like, I just don't need the grief of social media. I just don't need it.
Right. Yeah. Of course, all of this I do because it's interesting, it's fun, it's there's no pressure, like you said earlier. There's no pressure. I can do what I want here on my channel. It's not like, within the YouTube rules, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's just no pressure to do. A lot of people who do, fiber arts is the main reason for my channel. We do make things.
I've seen you. I've dropped in occasionally. I've seen you. I've got to be honest. I'm not probably going to start knitting it just yet,
which is another question I have for you. I need to know what your favorite color is.
Well, I just tend to wear blue all the time. I've got green on now. It's green, but I tend to wear blue all the time.
Okay.
You're gonna knit
there's
me
a reason I need to know.
And it does get cold sometimes.
Yep. And do you have animals? Do you have dogs, cats?
No, I've got children. They're enough.
That's enough. Okay. All right.
I've got 2 young children, 4 and 6. So yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't introduce an animal into the house at the moment.
Yeah, and they are nonstop these days. Nonstop. I have my grandsons are Solomon. He just turned 3, so I don't know if they'll watch this back, but. And
you don't want your 3-year-old tuning into this. They'll be scarred for life.
He waves at me on the TV. Mama puts me up on the TV and he waves at me. So, oh yeah. He's only half listening. He's just looking at Momo, Oh yeah. He loves yarn, actually. He's a cutie. He's like, yarn. She'll get a package in the mail and she'll say, what do you think's in here? And he goes, yarn. And the other day she sent me one and he's sitting, she's trying to wind up into a ball, a yarn that she got in the mail, and it comes in a hank that it's not easy to just, it'll get tangled easy. And he's holding it on his face. So can I just do this for a minute, Mama? I love it. How much better could that be from a lady who crochets and knits? Yeah, I don't do hey, Persephone, she's here in town, a local to me that we talk. She crochets while checking out my groceries. I love it. How are you doing? Saw her today. Twitter is for twits. I cannot do the Twitter thing. I have one. I have a handle over there, and I know people do it, but it feels like some of the social media stuff just feels like it goes a little nuts. You know?
I just think with the anonymity of Twitter, it just creates just such a toxic atmosphere.
Yes.
I'm on it, but only like not professionally, and I just use it like like soccer, football. So I use it to catch up what's happening with my team, but I wouldn't use it professionally because you just open yourself up to just trolls and idiots, and I just can't. I've got no time for it. I don't need to do it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
There's a question from Mary. I saw that.
Yes.
How did you turn off before going home to family, or could you? Good question, Mary. So turning off is it's a funny it's a bit of a convoluted answer for me because well basically I never used to carry any negativity home with me. So I was very good at compartmentalizing. So I never got properly affected by what I did. So I wouldn't go home and be down or anything like that. But I wouldn't really switch off. When you're investigating a murder, you're so invested in it that it's always on your mind. Even if you're not at work, you still be thinking about the murder and what can we do? What are we missing? And some of my best detective work was done in bed. I was a bed detective. So I would lay there at night and my brain was clear of everything. The children were asleep. And I just lay there and it was just my clearest. It was when I had my clearest thoughts. So quite often I would wake up in the morning and I would be I'd go into work the next morning, and I'd be like, I've had these ideas, and people are like, what now? And we go, well, why we should be doing this? We should look at that. We should da. Huh. So I did take it home with me, but not in a negative way. But how it did manifest was, and I write about this in the book, is laying there at night just before you're about to go to sleep and thinking about murders and you're trying to get yourself in the killer's mind and why did he do that? What would I be thinking when I'm doing that? And you're doing all this kind of stuff. So I'd go fall asleep and I would have the most violent dreams. It would be me. I would be the killer. So most nights I would go to bed and I'd wake up and I've killed someone in some horrific and violent way. And it didn't bother me. I used to joke about it. And my partner would be like, "What you dreamt about now?" And I'd say, and they'd be like, "Wow, you need help," but in a jokey way. It didn't bother me, and I don't think it affected me negatively. But it was only when I was writing the book, and like these things can be quite cathartic. So I was writing a book, and I got one of the questions on this Facebook group was how did you cope with what you? How did it affect you, and that kind of thing. And it was only when I was reflecting on that, and I realised actually I don't have those dreams anymore. I realised the dreams had stopped, and the dreams had stopped when I wasn't investigating murder anymore. And I just kind of forgot that I had them.
Interesting.
So yeah, the mind's a funny thing, isn't it? As much as you can compartmentalize and you can lock things away, when you're asleep, you can't. Your brain takes over. And all those thoughts you've had about you're trying to be the killer and trying to imagine why they did what they did. Well, it's no surprise you're suddenly dreaming and you are a killer, is it?
Wow. Well, yeah, the brain it's fascinating, and again, it goes like part of why we are interested. The why of why people do it, that goes back to the brain too. I mean, it's. How much do you think really? You got to tell the crazy poppy lady though. She wants to know.
Oh, I'm a Liverpool fan. Can't you tell by the accent? That wouldn't mean a lot to you, Jill, would it? But I support a team that's on the other side of the country. But when I was growing up, I was about 4 or 5, and my best friend said to me, "What football team do you support?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." He said, "I'm a Liverpool fan." I said, "I'll be a Liverpool fan too." I didn't know where that was.
Is that
it's just stuck.
Liverpool?
Liverpool, yeah, where the Beatles are from.
Okay. Interesting. And what people don't know, football, that's soccer.
No, football is football. You've stolen the word football and given it to some other sport. I don't know what that is. It's rugby with helmets, as far as I can make out.
I'm strange because I never really I've never really been a huge sports fan of any kind.
Hmm.
I had a football team that I really liked, and it was the LA Rams. For a long time, I wouldn't tell people that. And then I liked tennis for a while.
Hmm.
And then I realized it wasn't so much tennis, it was more the tennis players. So
Like John McEnroe and
no, he wasn't really that great. It was what was his name? I've forgotten his name already.
Pete Sampras. Is he American?
Yes, no. Shoot, I'll think of it later. Anyway, I watched tennis for a while, but I'm not really a huge sports fan. It's not, I just don't follow them really. But like I said, out here we stream everything. We don't have, I'm 5 miles from the nearest tower.
Right.
And so I'm limited. I'm really surprised this internet has done really, really well today, and I'm very appreciative. But the weather affects it, the wind affects it, all kinds of things affect it. I would never use my Wi-Fi because that's useless. And so everything's
What? So you on
wired.
4 or 5G? Or?
No, we're on wire. We're wired in.
Right.
So I'm using the just straight up wired internet, and
Right.
it's the most stable. But what I did was I got a dedicated line for the she shed. So whatever.
The she shed?
Yeah, this is
Great
she
name.
shed. This used to be my beauty shop.
Oh, okay.
And we brought it from town and put it out here. And right here where you see where this opening here, that used to be the bathroom.
That looks like a strip club at the back. What's that?
I know, that says live
girls.
Right. Oh,
Is there live girls at the back?
The Floozie's got to have one of those. And that goes to the house right there. Mr. Fiber, he opened up the side of the house and made an opening and made a hallway going from here. So I go right into the house.
Right. Very good.
Anyway. But yeah, getting a dedicated line made a big difference for me. About the young women going missing, do you feel there's a serial killer doing that?
Is that over here?
Yeah.
I should know this.
Yeah, the young women going missing lately, you said. You had talked about that earlier. Being taken off the streets.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, they were killed by. They've all been solved. Those cases. One of them was a police officer. And a couple of others were caught quite quickly. No, they weren't connected.
Okay.
Yeah, sad cases.
I don't know what that word was going to be, but
what's that?
Can't say what we call American football. You did well not to say it. Oh my goodness. Okay, does anybody have any more questions? I'm looking to see. Do you think I missed any? I think I got everything I had written down. Running through it here looking. Was there anything you wanted to tell us?
I don't think so. No, I'll just come and go with the flow. I was like, see where it goes. Well, we've done 92 minutes. That's pretty good, isn't it?
That's pretty good. Yeah. I'm glad my voice held out this long too. Yeah.
No, you did well.
I really appreciate it. I really do. I know.
I've enjoyed it. No, I've got my partner investigates murders. My daughter is a detective. My son is a police officer. My sister's a police officer. No one wants to hear me talk about murder. So
oh my goodness.
The only place I could do it is on here.
That's like a lot of us. Nobody wants to talk about yarn but us yarny people. Our husbands and wives are like.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever read this one?
No, I haven't. No. Is he the fella that married Marilyn Monroe?
Yes, I found that out last time I talked about this. I'm like, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, no, I've not read that.
Yeah, evidently he was married to her last. He
He
was
did
her
well.
last
He was
husband.
batting. In the UK, we call that batting. He was definitely batting.
But this is what we're reading next. So, do you have a date? Do you think on the book when the next book?
21st of July, apparently.
This year?
Yeah, that's like, okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no
Wow,
pressure.
you are trying to really you feel good about it though? I mean, you're
Yeah. I mean, they contracted me for 80,000 words, which I'm at already, and I've still got a load of way to go.
wow.
I can't talk about it at the moment because it's not
Right.
finalized, but I've got some people helping me with the book. I can't really talk about it, but I've got some people, a
Okay.
guest writer, if you like, who's providing something that's quite unique, which I'm really quite excited about. So
It's coming together a little bit then.
I'm looking forward to it being finished. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, if anybody does not know, you did have that live that you talked about Jack the Ripper, and it was very, very interesting. So y'all go
Yeah, that
and
was
check
3
out.
hours. Wasn't it?
I
Yeah,
know, but it was
set
amazing.
aside a day or two to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got really good feedback. And a lot of it is very similar to how the book's going to be. So I'm dealing with 7 or 8 murders. Well, one kind of, but dealing with actually 7. So I'm doing six murders plus 1. And then I'm applying a lot of what's in that book, the first book, to this. And then what I'm not trying to do is solve it. I'm going to see what I've got some methods that we're going to reapply into the suspects, and we'll see where we end up. I'm not going to be promising anybody that I'm going to solve it and tell you Jack the Ripper is.
Oh, we're definitely going to be reading that. Yeah,
Thank you.
we're just going to read stuff until it comes out, and we'll be ready. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing anyway. There's no pre-order yet for that. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know how it works. My first book was all under my own control, wasn't it? And then by the time the publishers took it over, it was already out. So I don't know how it works. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know.
Guess we're just gonna.
I think they want it because 21st of July is when the roughly when the school holidays start here. So they try and get it into the airport so people can go and take it on holiday with them. So I think that's what that's why that date's there. Yeah.
Huh. Okay, July 21st. I'm gonna write that down so I don't forget. Okay, but we'll be reading it. So whenever it comes out.
Yeah, I hope it's not rubbish because when you write a book, so I'm right because especially the way the books I write, I'm not writing a story that flows like that. I'm writing in sections, and you kind of it's only when you read it afterwards and you think, oh, blimey, I've covered that already, or that doesn't make sense. So I haven't read it back yet, so it might be rubbish. We'll see.
Well, and I said this, and I didn't get a chance because I felt so terrible last week. But I'm going to reread this book.
Oh no, you don't have to do that.
No, I am.
Make anyone do that.
Because
you know
when
what?
I was
Can I be
doing
brutally
it
honest,
before,
Jill? Can I be brutally honest? I was so bored of that book by the end of it.
by the time you got done,
I was just done with it. I'd read it and reread it and read it again and re-edited it. And by the end of it, if anyone ever pulled it out, I was getting PTSD from the writing. Get it away from me.
I won't hold it.
I'm all right now. I've got over that. But I was like, at the end, I was like, do not want to go anywhere near this book again. I need a break.
For me, it definitely gave me awareness of some things and thinking of things in ways that I had not thought about, seeing things from that end of it, We tend to, as fans, see things like I said before, like as a, consumer end of things, so whatever you're watching, listening to, and reading and consuming, that's kind of where your information, unless we have some background like Katie and criminology or in law enforcement or something like that. So I think it's good to have these to read along with other things. I just finished listening to BTK, the serial killer's daughter, and
Right.
I would recommend that definitely, because she wrote the book, and it was interesting to hear how she talked about this normal life that went on.
Mm.
That she completely considered this normal life, and then to find out that there was this other life that was going on.
Yeah.
It's
I write
fascinating.
about that in this book because Jack the Ripper being the first serial killer, the police that investigated him were absolutely convinced, and everybody was convinced, it was some lunatic. He was like a lunatic. So a lot of their inquiries, I use the word lunatic because that's what they use. I know it's not politically correct now,
Oh,
but they
wow.
would go to lunatic asylums, and a lot of what they were doing was around, well, he can't be normal. It can't be a normal person committing these heinous crimes. So he must be a madman. And it's like, well, you're missing the point, really, because most serial killers are just normal people on the face of it.
Right.
And it's only once they get caught that people go, really? Wow. I mean, might have been a bit odd, but I wouldn't have put that down to him
Yes.
or her. So it is interesting. I mean, I don't have time to read that, but it would be interesting to
Just
to
kind of
see
stick
that.
it in the back of your mind for later, because it's really, to me, it was very interesting, because seeing it from somebody who was there, she grew up with him.
Yeah.
And she reflects on it afterwards. She takes you through it, and then she takes you into her reflection of it afterwards. And it's very interesting. I know. Me too. We don't have it here. We do not have the audio version of your book here.
How does that
Only in the
work? Is it
UK.
not just on the internet? Do you not Audible? It's on Audible. Does that not?
Only UK version. Only
That's
UK.
ridiculous.
It's
Why would that
only
be?
accessible to the audio version is only accessible on Audible to those in the UK.
Why would that be? That just makes no
I don't know
sense.
why they do that.
Surely it's just click a button. It's like the ebook or whatever you would call it. You don't.
I know.
Doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, we could have that. We got that. The ebook, that was no problem.
Oh, I don't know. I lost my publishers. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, okay.
Sorry.
Everyone has really enjoyed this, and I have so enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it. I like I say, I love talking about murder, so there aren't many people that will listen.
Well, you're welcome to come back sometime if you want to, but you're going to be busy writing, and I would hate to say,
Yeah,
I
people keep saying, when are you going to do something on your YouTube channel? I'd love to be able to, but I had a bit of an issue on mine. I don't know what I did. I upset Google somehow, and they took off the monetization. But it was probably the best thing they could have done, because it was taking up far too much of my time, far too much up of my mental capacity. If I wasn't doing YouTube, I was thinking about YouTube, and for very, very little return. Very little return.
I know.
It's like, why am I doing this?
I don't do this for money. I do this
you can't.
because
I mean, you can, but you got to be lucky, haven't you, to make anything out of it.
But there's so much more work to it. I would say
Yeah.
last year I focused on that, and I had memberships. I had a Patreon. I was doing all kinds of things, and I was like, I'm not enjoying this.
No.
And now I have 2 channels. My other one is diamond painting and other crafts and stuff. I separated the yarn from the other crafts, and so I have the 2 channels. But if I get stuff over there, I get it over there. If I don't, I don't. Hey, it is what it is. I'm just one person,
Yeah.
and I enjoy it.
It's so much work, isn't it? Like I say, for such little return, and they did me a favor. But once I've got this book out of the way, I'll feel like I've got the ability. I've got a speaking event coming up in the end of February, which I'm regretting now, because I've got to get ready for that.
Oh, because of the book,
yeah. So I've just tried not to do anything at all. So if anybody asks me to do anything, I'm like, no, I can't. I've got to get this book done.
And now I know I've shown people your website, and on your website you also talk about, you do some sort of consulting or something. Is that?
I'll do anything for money.
Sure. How much you gonna pay me? I'll be there.
No, so yeah. So the other day I got approached to do some security consultancy, and it wasn't something I was planning on doing. But I was like, well, once I've got the book out of the way, what I'm liking is having lots of fingers in different pies, where you can go, well, if that works, it doesn't, so yeah, and so, like at the moment, I got approached the other day by a television company to do some consultancy work, and it's like I can't. So I've got people I know who've left the police recently, and I just pass it on to them, and they do it.
Interesting. And I imagine you do get approached by different people.
Yeah, a lot of it a lot of it is there's so much true crime like documentaries, and what they want you to do, they want you to come on and talk about your cases, and I won't do that. So in the book I anonymized them, and to me it was important. That was important, and I'm not going to go on TV and like on YouTube I might mention it, but what you're not going to have is the families coming on and see me talking about their loved one's crime. So I don't do that, but that's what people want you to do. So most of the time I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I like that. That's called integrity. I like the integrity part of it. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I guess we're going to go then.
Cool.
That's
all right. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Dang.
It's been lovely to meet, see everyone's names anyway. And
yes.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it, and I really enjoyed this. This was so much fun.
Cool. All right. Yeah. I'll come back another time.
Okay.
See you later, everyone.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have fun today, and we will see you soon. I don't know when. I don't know when my next live. I know I'll be on Friday, but that's about all I can tell them right now. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.